In this chapter I'm going to add some final touches to this character and getting him ready for the final renders. Something that I want to do is to add some fur to this ball and some little hair sticking out of this kimono, just implying that this is a really rough material and sometimes has this little hair sticking out. And I'm going to add some hair on his face. So, how do we do that? I'm going to use XGen. Something really important in XGen is the naming. Keep in mind that XGen is linked to the geometry, so once you created XGen under this full ball geometry, for example, you should never ever change the name of this object, because these are linked together. Another really important thing to understand about XGen is that it's going to create folders inside your project. So double check that when you start to create XGen, you are under the correct project. And you can check it here. Under project window, you can see where the project is. Now we can start to create this hair. So the first thing to do is select your geometry and create a new description. Here, give a description. In this case, I will call backpack because it's part of the backpack. I'm going to put B because I already tested this before. And here I'm going to call ball. Now I want to create splines randomly across surface and placing and shaping guides, and hit create. And this should be created. Now we should be able to add splines. And now I can create splines all over the sphere. And they're going to generate hair for me. After creating the guides, I create a layer for the sphere. And in this way, I can make the sphere not selectable. In this way, it would be much easier for me to tweak the guides. Another thing you should be aware of is that the guides are pretty big. So there is a way to make them look smaller and thinner. And it's a script which I have here, and you can copy this and paste it into Python, and then run it. You can see that now they are much smaller. One thing you can do is also take this script and save it on the shelf. I call W for width. And so every time I want to reduce the size of these splines, I just hit this button and I can make them much smaller and easier to work with. Now I'm going to start to groom them and get more into the hair creation. Here I'm starting to preview the hair and giving a density of 300. After that I start to change the width around 0.04. And then also working with the ramp, I'm giving them some more pointy tips. Now I'm going to start to reshape the guides using the Sculpt Guide tool. But before that, I have hidden all the objects. In this way it would be much easier for me to select all the guides and reshape them little by little. Here these act almost like a soft brush and give you the opportunity to reshape them however you like. I'm going to sort of apply some gravity to this hair so they are going down and they're not perfectly straight. I can change also the length by just scaling the splines. Now I'm previewing again and you can see they are all too perfect, so I'll start to put some modifiers. The first is a clamp modifier, which as the name is saying, is just creating some clamps, and I'm just reducing the amount of clamping with a curve. Here modifying a little bit more the width, and I'm going to start to apply more modifiers. The second is cut. And I have a little expression that I use for the cut. So the cut is now a bit more random. I'm going to give you all these expressions and all this script in the resource material of the course, so don't worry about that. Now I'm also trying some coils, but I think that they were a bit too strong and I probably got rid of them at the end. Then I'm applying another cut, so on top of that will be another cut even more random compared to the one before. Now I'm applying an Arnold hair material, and I'm going to start to preview in a bit. This Arnold material is based on real physics, so you can adjust only the melanin of the hair, and that will provide the color. I'm going to do a really simple shader in here. Here I'm starting to tweak the shader and just changing the melanin, and that will give me the color of the hair. Here I'm playing a bit more with the length, and I decided to make them a little longer, sort of hanging down from this sphere. I'm going to play just a little bit more with some of the parameters. I decided to give a slightly bluish tint to the specular. And here I'm just testing how it looks. I'm pretty happy with the result, and I'm going to jump to the next. Now I'm going to create a new description from these ropes. Here I'm creating the new description. I'm giving a name, which is ropes, and the ropes hair. I'm going to create. Now I can place more guides, hiding other objects that could get in the way. So I'm adding more splines on one side, and then some in the center and some on the other side. I don't really need too many guides. I'm then following the same principle, previewing, and start to shaping the guides now. As you can see now, they're going all straight, and here I'm creating a layer again to make the geometry not selectable, and I'm continuing to shape these guides. Here I'm reshaping them with the Sculpt Guides tool, and I'm giving some random shape, mostly going a bit towards the floor for gravity. I'm following the same principle here, so I'm going to start to apply modifiers. I'm going to start to apply the cut, checking the parameters. I'm using very similar parameters to the other one. And then I'm doing a test render. I think it's overall looking pretty good and adding some more interest to this prop. I'm going to start to work on the head, and in this case I created a scalp. I basically duplicated the same geometry and removed some pieces like the inside of the eyes, and the inside of the mouth and the nostrils, because I don't want to create a useless amount of hair in these places. And then I'm going to hide this geometry. Now I've created the splines, and in this case I'm going to do only half of the head. And then I'm going to mirror on the other side. Here I'm trying to follow the same process and give some shape to the spline. Something to say is if you give the direction to the spline immediately, the next splines that you are going to create are going to interpolate in between, and this is a really great advantage, so you don't have to reshape every single guide. This is a really big help. I'm going to start to change the size as always, and I'm going to continue. This process seems to be really long if you never try it, but actually it's quite enjoyable and goes pretty fast. Now half of the head is done. I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to mirror it in a bit. A few more strokes and I'm going to mirror it. Here I mirrored, and now I'm trying to fill the gaps that are not filled by the mirroring, and also trying to randomize a bit the shapes where I can. The spline, they don't need to be perfect, because anyway the modifier will do a really great job creating all the randomization that I need, and also creating variation in the length and shapes. Now I'm going to apply an Arnold shader. Now I'm going to start to play with the melanin value, and many times I go pretty low. Sometimes I just go at 0 value with melanin, because I just want to create that peach hair really whitish, and they just help me to pick up some lighting. Now I'm going to add the usual modifiers, some noise to start, and then a cut, using the usual expression here, and changing a little the value, and an extra noise on top. This is enough, and I think it's looking pretty good. This is just a little addition to this character, but I think it's going to give that extra touch that I was looking for. Now, before getting into the final render of this character, I want to show you a plugin that I recently started to use for rigging. It's called mGear, and it's completely free and open source, and comes with some amazing templates to rig your character. I think it's really worth to try. Here you can download it, and you'll be directed to GitHub. Here, for people like me that are not programmers, maybe it looks a bit confusing. You don't see anything to download, but you can see all the improvements that have been done to this plugin. And here one of the biggest one is the fact that you don't need anymore to install PyML, which was a little complicated, I think. And here you can read all the improvement. Some of the major improvement as well is the fact that they added some really great animal rig templates. And here, if you scroll down to the end of the post, you can see assets, and here is where you can download the plugin, and even the code if you want to contribute coding. Let's get into the rig now. Here I'm going to start rigging. I go to mGear and then the shifter, and then I'm going to find the templates. Here in the templates, I'm going to use Game Viper template Y, because the Y up is the correct direction for Maya. Now here the first thing I'm going to do is delete half of the rig, selecting this red controller, and then I'm going to mirror symmetry after I placed correctly these controllers. Remember that these are only the guides. So we start by placing the hip and then going down to the leg, trying to get your position as close as possible as where the shoulder and all the joint should be. So next is the shoulder joint. I'm trying to center it as best as I can, and also giving the correct angle. Now I'm going to go down to the elbow and place it, and then down to the foot. I'm constantly changing by front view and right view. Here I'm placing again the shoulder and the elbow, trying to be in the center of the geometry. Here very patiently I'm going to start to place the finger, and here I'm working on the knees and the foot. The foot is quite tricky, so you just need to be really patient and move the main part to start with, and place the knee as well. And also check the direction of the foot. Always also try to give a little bend to the joint of the elbow and the knees, because this will dictate the apovector. Here now I'm going back to the hand, starting with the thumb and going down for each joint. You really need to take your time here. This is quite speed up, but it's very important that these joints are placed at the best of your knowledge where the bone are going to bend. And also try never to create any zigzag or weird angles. Here I'm checking the position of the joint again. And I'm going to the next. Here I'm placing the second. And checking in every angle that is working as best as I can. Then going to the next finger. Now I'm pretty happy with most of the placement of all these pieces. And keep in mind, these are only guides. Now you need to create the actual bones. Here now I'm going to mirror. I'm going to select the root of the arm there and duplicate by symmetry. And the same with the root of the leg. Keep in mind that all the symmetry and all the work must be done inside Shifter and not with the regular Maya tools, because they're going to break. Now you are going to build from selection, and here the rig is built. It's impressively fast and it's a very advanced rig. Here you can also change the shape of the controllers. These are just curves, so you can just select the vertices and give another shape. In this case I'm moving the shape because it's not so easy to select, so I'm making a bigger shape which will be much more easy to select for posing, or eventually even for animation if you want to animate. Then once you have done half part of the body, you could symmetrize these shapes as well. And here again you need to use specific Shifter M-Gear tools and not the traditional Maya tools. Here, after I finish, I'm going to select and I'm going to mirror the shapes. Under rigid bits, mirror control shapes, left to the right. And that is going to update the shape on the other side. This way will be much more easy to pose the hand of this character. Now I'm going to apply a bind skin by selecting the joint first, then the geometry, and then bind skin. Here for option I'm using joint hierarchy, hitmap, classic linear, and interactive, and I found that these work pretty well for me. Here now the weight is applied, I'm going to start to test the rig. It's working pretty well. Of course I'm not going to do a really extreme pose, but quite a simple one. Here I'm testing the fingers, and we can see that on the last joint there is a little problem, which is a really common problem in rigging. Actually I could never solve before, and thanks to the really great scripts provided by M-Gear, I can solve it. You need to select all the last joints of the fingers, and use a script, which I'm going to provide as well with the course. Here you just run this script, and what it's going to do is going to create an extra bone at the extremity of the fingertips, and this is going to help the weight. In this way, the last joint is now going to be weighted properly. After that, you can see how much better is now the last bending joint, and is looking extremely good now. Even with very little work applied, I did zero work on the weight. This is just the default weighting. Now I'm going to go into skin and remove unused weights. At this point I can select the bones again, the final joints, and delete them because I don't need them anymore. The weight problem has been fixed. Here now I'm starting to pose this character. It's going to be quite a simple pose. I just want to extend the arm and having him holding this stick, almost like in a passing position. I imagine that he's just walking and wandering around. Here I'm going to move the stick and moving the pivot point. Here I'm trying to figure out the position of this stick and moving the hand to reach it. Here I'm placing the fingers and trying to give a natural pose touching this walking stick. Something to mention also is that you can find really great tutorials about M-Gear created by the author of the software. They have an official YouTube channel and I've learned everything on that channel. I really strongly recommend to go and check it out. Here I'm just moving the foot, just slightly to give more of a natural position to the guy. This is quite enough. It's pretty good pose for me. I'm copying the skinning now from the character to the clothing and it's working really great. You can see it's almost perfect. I just need to smooth a little bit the weight here and it's going to work pretty well. Here I'm just applying some smoothing on the weight. Now I'm slightly changing the position of the walking stick so it can fit better on his hands. And I'm evaluating in different angles. Overall it's looking pretty good. Here I'm checking again the hand and giving some more tweak to the position. And I'm pretty much ready to do the render now. Here this is my first test render with the pose character and I think it's looking pretty good. Here I'm just comparing the ends before and after and I think it's looking pretty natural. I'm going to go for the final renders now. So here I did another render test and I'm pretty happy with the result. The only thing that I changed is the walking stick. I think that before was looking a bit thin, so I increased the size and the thickness and apply a displacement map. And I think now we are really ready for the last renders. So in the next chapter we are going to go through final renders and some compositing in Photoshop. See you there.